Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, oh Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna and welcome to the Vaishnava Voices podcast. My name is Sitapati Das.
And my name is Dana Devi.
Vaishnava Voices podcast is coming to you from a small rural town in the North Island of New Zealand, where we live on a lifestyle block of 5 acres with 4 cows, 24 chickens, and 2 cats. We also have a daughter, 15, who lives with us, and our son, 21, is starting his adult life in Australia.
Lucky for some. You may be wondering where I'm from. I am from Peru. At home, we speak Spanish, and it's exciting to speak my own language.
I learned to speak Spanish in 2001 to 2004 when I lived in Lima, Peru, doing service in the BBT and in ISKCON temples. The Vaishnava Voices podcast is created inside a commitment to the possibility of connecting Vaishnavas from around the world, sharing knowledge, information, perspective, and wisdom, and transforming the conversational environment that we live in.
Life is real, and let's share what's happening in our world. And let's make a life exciting, because it doesn't need to be boring.
We'd love to have you come on the show to share your experience, perspective, knowledge, and wisdom. So reach out and start a conversation with us. Feel free to do it anytime. And enjoy today's episode.
Looking forward to talk to you.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Shri Ram.
Dhira Govinda Prabhu.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Dr. David B. Wolf, iconoclast, heretic, researcher, author, thinker, thought leader, founder of the Sattvatov Institute, publisher of papers on the 3 modes of material nature, the Vedic model for analyzing the world and its application in a psychological context, author of The Prominent Link, and the new book that we're talking about today, Srila Prabhupada is Sastra, Perspectives on the Infallibility of Srila Prabhupada. Tell us about this, Prabhu. Tell us about this.
Hare Krishna, thanks for inviting me to speak and be interviewed and discuss and hear. Okay, tell us about this. All right, so, about a little over a year ago, actually some devotees and Prabhupada's international community brought to my attention the 2022 edition of the ISKCON Communications Journal, ICJ, and they brought it to my attention, and so I read it. I read the whole thing, and then based on some or several of the articles there, I got moved, also prompted and even prodded by some of these devotees who said, like, you should write something. And upon reading what I read in the journal, many of the articles, I agreed with them that my sense was that Srila Prabhupada and his sincere followers would want me to write something. And so my motivation, my inspiration was like, those articles were an impetus. I got inspiration or some clarity that there are some things that ought to be said that I think are important to be said. In saying that, what I wrote in Srila Prabhupada's Sastra, Perspectives on the Infallibility of Srila Prabhupada, it's not intrinsically a response to, a reaction to, a critique of, a book review of any of the articles or all of the articles in the 2022 ICJ. It's not inherently a response or a book review or an article review. At the same time, those articles, they were an impetus for me to share things that, based on my realization or what I believe is my realization and based on my perception of what's happening in various sectors of Srila Prabhupada's movement, to express things that I felt are and still strongly believe are important to say and emphasize. So that's some history. I didn't talk about the content, but that's the history of what moved me. And so back about 8-9 months ago, I cleared some time, August of last year, and I and I wrote like the first manuscript, the first draft, and I sent it to ICJ for publication. And then about 4 months later, a representative of ICJ wrote back saying that they declined to publish, and he gave his reasons, and so I self-published.
Mhm.
I love it. You're backing yourself. We could say perhaps it's not a response, it's not a reaction, it's part of the same conversation. Would you say that that's a fair statement?
Yeah, I like that terminology.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about this conversation. What's this conversation that's taking place in the society of ISKCON, the Society of Devotees, and yeah, what is that conversation that this forms part of?
Okay. Yeah, and I guess mostly in response to that, I'll probably share about my personal experience and realizations. I do believe I have some connection about what's going on in the meta view of the ISKCON world, planet in a planetary sense, but I don't claim to be an expert of what's going on in all corners of such conversations. I would say maybe a little over 10 years ago, yeah, maybe I started hearing. I started hearing. I started hearing more and more. Not that it wasn't there back even into the 90s and like that, but maybe around 2013, 2015, I started hearing amongst maybe especially those who are seen or are like intellectually trained and like that. I started hearing the statement, Srila Prabhupada isn't Shastra. Srila Prabhupada is not Shastra. So actually that they were inspirations for the title. Like, so I'm saying, yes, he is. so I would hear that Srila Prabhupada isn't Shastra, and then directly, and that's a direct quote from different persons, and the idea is to know what's Shastra. We need to check Shastra. We need to check Shastra, because like Srila Prabhupada, he says this and he says that, and I'm going to insert my some of my viewpoint. Yeah, like it's a lot of times what's essentially being said is, if I want to unpack it, Srila Prabhupada saying things that are not conforming with my postmodern and modern education. How could they possibly be true? Okay. I'm getting a little dramatic there, but I'm doing that deliberately. Okay. So so we need to check Shastra. We need to check what does Jiva Goswami Sundarbha say, to see is Prabhupada aligned here? Is sure. I mean, some of what Prabhupada says is aligned with Shastra and infallible, but sometimes he might be, or definitely is, he's influenced by mundane secular cultures, the British Raj and colonial Bengal, and so he's influenced there. I mean, he's still a good guy, and like that, and a nice devotee. But so we need to check. So yeah. So then, so that's part of the conversation I'm hearing, or at least my perception. Srila Prabhupada is not Shastra. So to see what aspects of Srila Prabhupada is authorized and is factual, we need to study the Atharva Veda and the Puranas and like that. So then, okay, here's the thing. Like, so speaking personally, and in many respects, everything, no, not everything, a lot that's in Srila Prabhupada Shastra, it's me sharing my personal experience, perceptions, realizations. And my experience over the years and decades, to quote Carl Rogers, he said, what is most personal is most general. And actually, the main response, not the only response, but the main response that I'm hearing in response to Srila Prabhupada Shastra perspectives on the infallibility of Srila Prabhupada is like, oh, thank you, thank you for putting into words that which kind of it's, I've known to be true. It's so consistent with my realization, but it's becoming more and more taboo to say. So that my personal realization, my sense is, it generalizes to at least many others. So for example, we hear, okay, we hear that the Yuga Dharma is chanting the names of God. Harinam, 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 Eva Kela, Kevalam Kalo, Nasteva, 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 Gatiranyata. And of course, what that practically translates to is chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra Idi Shodashakam Nam Nam Kalikama Shanashanam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So the Yuga Dharma is chanting the names of God rather than some meditation or super opulent sacrifice. But is it really? Is that, is it really true? I don't know. I don't know. So what I'm saying there is, I've heard that from Srila Prabhupada. I've heard that the Yuga Dharma and the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Nam, I've heard that. But how is Srila Prabhupada really representing Sri Chaitanya and the Panchatattva correctly? Is he representing the Kali Santarana Upanishad correctly? I haven't studied the Kali Santarana Upanishad. I haven't studied the Puranas. So, is that really the Yuga Dharma? So, for example, in one of the articles in the 2022 ICJ, the author, he says, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavad Gita, there's Shastra, there's Sadhu, and there's Guru, and they're distinct, and we don't collapse the distinctions between them. So I wrote in Srila Prabhupada Shastra, actually, I do collapse the distinctions between them. Oh, but from a hermeneutic point of view, and yeah, according to this, I'm just saying I do. But that's not valid. I'm just saying I do. So I hear from Srila Prabhupada that chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, this is Yuga Dharma for the day, that to support my spiritual life, follow these 4 regulative principles, like that. Okay, so I never studied the Bhagavatam, studied the Rig Veda to check whether what Prabhupada's saying is true. So for me, Srila Prabhupada is Shastra. For me, Srila Prabhupada is Shastra. Now, and again, in one of the articles in ICJ 2022, the author says, look, the Vedic system is that one studies Shastra to determine the qualifications and the behavior of a true Vaishnava guru. And then, based on the study with Shastra, then one can determine and to accept a guru. So that's the process. That is the Vedic process. It's not my process. It hasn't been my process. So, well, that's wrong. Then you're not doing it right. Could be. It's just not been my process. So for me, not like in a flash, because I'm slow and very covered by the modes, but Srila Prabhupada is and has been since I first started reading his books and contacting him through his representatives. That was in 1980. Srila Prabhupada is self-revealing. I never studied the Vedas to determine, does Prabhupada actually match these qualities? So that hasn't been my process. Okay, so I'm sharing a lot about my process, and I believe that's the process. Even I feel confident to say the author of the article in ICJ who determined you don't collapse the distinctions, 99.99% sure, that was his process too, back in the late 60s, early 70s. He like that. So from that point of view and my personal experience, that's one thing I mean, one way in which I'm meaning Srila Prabhupada is Shastra. There's other ways too. There's, a lot of nuance and, but that's, I thought to kind of start there.
Thank you for the Carl Rogers quote. I wondered the source for that. I heard it the other day on, maybe it was either Joe Rogan, who is a stand-up comedian, talking to another comedian. The guys from Trigonometry, they're also stand-up comedians. Or it could have been Jimmy Carr, who's also a stand-up comedian. They talked about it in the context of comedy, and they said the most specific is the most general. Yeah, so they were talking in the context of humor and telling jokes. So it's interesting that it comes up again. The more specific, the more, or the way you phrased it from Carl Rogers was the most personal is the most general.
Yeah, his exact words, if I'm getting it correct, and I can get it because I've read several of Carl Rogers' books, so I wasn't just like searching the internet. It's like it's in one of his main books. The wording that I'm remembering is what is most personal is most general.
Powerful. Okay, there's a lot to unpack in what you've just put on the table. We're talking about hermeneutics here, and you quoted the Hari Guru Vaishnava and Bhagavad Gita, which I believe is from the Hari Hari Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha song. That Narottam Das Thakur, I think.
Yeah.
Hari Guru Vaishnava and Bhagavad Gita, the three, the Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, the triple Praman.
Yeah.
And so your statement is, well, I collapse the three into one single Praman. Or in other words, if I'm getting it correctly, you're saying Hari Guru, Vaishnava, and Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada for you is the embodiment of all three. And there's this idea of, okay, we need to check the triple Praman exists in order to triangulate statements so that it detects and guards against deviation, that we will put the embodiment into an authority who then is not actually an authority and misuses that authority to make statements that people then take as the God-given absolute truth, and actually this person is deviating. So there's got to be some philosophical technical term for this, but I don't know what it is, so I'm going to just describe it in a general sense without the shorthand. And that is, well, Ayendra put it, quoting someone else, truth is authority, and authority is not truth. It's not the other way around, like, well, this person is the authority, so therefore whatever they say is true, but rather that this person is speaking the truth, and therefore that makes them the authority. And so you describe this process of checking the statements that Srila Prabhupada has made and determining whether they're actually valid or not. Before I explore that part there, I just want to roll back to where you were saying in the 90s, people started to say Srila Prabhupada is not Shastra. That became a thing. Now, that's not necessarily in contrast to any statement that came before where people would say Srila Prabhupada is Shastra. People didn't say that, and this wasn't like a, no, he's not an argument. But I can see, and I'll give a personal anecdote here because, the most personal is the most general. What people said before that was they would say, Srila Prabhupada says that, or Srila Prabhupada said. And when I was in the ashram, and leading an ashram, I remember one devotee in there, he said, have you ever seen the Smurfs? The little cartoon with the little blue?
Yeah, I have a little familiarity there.
So there's one Smurf there called Brainy Smurf, and he has glasses on, and his line that he would always say is, Papa Smurf always says that, and that was his thing. Papa Smurf always says anytime anything's happening, well, Papa Smurf always says that. And he was like, dude, you sound like Brainy Smurf from the Smurfs, Srila Prabhupada says that. And I think the other, Srila Prabhupada is not Shastra. The other way that this gets language that's less precise than that is like, well, Srila Prabhupada said a lot of things. That's the ultimate comeback, right? Well, Srila Prabhupada said that. Well, Srila Prabhupada said a lot of things. Of course, the response to that would be, well, let's have a look at what Srila Prabhupada said. What are the various statements that he made, and let's have a look at them rather than just dismissing it with Srila Prabhupada said a lot of things. But this is a slightly different one, which is rather than Srila Prabhupada said a lot of things and we need to consider all of them and examine them to get the full context.
Yeah.
This idea that Srila Prabhupada is not Shastra is a statement that Srila Prabhupada can and did say things that are not aligned with Shastra.
Yeah.
So this leads into the Srila Prabhupada is culturally conditioned. Srila Prabhupada, we have to discriminate between his different statements, which is an application of the Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, Hari Guru, Vaishnava, and Bhagavad Gita Praman to Srila Prabhupada. But it seems that you're making a statement that Srila Prabhupada a priori cannot say anything that is not aligned with Shastra. Or that if Srila Prabhupada says something that we find out later on that, hey, I found something in Shastra that contradicts this, well, we're going to take Srila Prabhupada over and above that because Srila Prabhupada's authority is superior to the Shastra. Or your statement is these are so many different subtleties of this domain.
So many subtleties.
Tripurari Swami would say that Shastra consists of the statements of the Mahajans, the great souls. Like if you read it, it's like Vidura said, or someone is speaking in the Sri Upanishad. And so the statements of Srila Prabhupada, let's have a look at it from here. There's many statements Srila Prabhupada made, and there's a distinction that people make between statements and conversations, statements and letters, and then his commentaries and the purports. Are you saying that literally everything that Srila Prabhupada said is Shastra, including his recorded room conversations? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Okay, now what? Yeah, yes. And that's my short answer. And then to expand, well, what do we mean by that? So like you expressed many things there. So yes, definitely. And this is included in the booklet, Srila Prabhupada Shastra. It's included there. Of course, to understand and get realization of what Prabhupada means in a particular context. Of course, we endeavor to understand what Prabhupada says in the context of the totality of his teachings, and that include and by hearing from Sadhu and other sincere followers of Srila Prabhupada, we hear from them, and that could expand our perspective. And of course, we're considering, okay, Srila Prabhupada said, what you said is true. Srila Prabhupada said so many things, apparently contradictory things. All right. Oh, so here he's writing to a particular student, and he's talking about the universities are slaughterhouses, and there he's talking to another student in a different letter, and he's encouraging them, yes, get your advanced degrees. That's not a contradiction. It's time and circumstance. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada might play devil's advocate, and he's speaking Mayavad, deviant philosophy, and we could take that excerpt. Look, Prabhupada said. So of course, is he using metaphor here? Is this a casual conversation? Is this the purport for the next 10,000 years? Nothing from Srila Prabhupada is influenced by the modes of nature. Nothing from Srila Prabhupada is influenced by mundane culture. We might perceive that it is, and that's just like, oh, the clouds covering the sun. No, the clouds covering my tiny vision. The sun is shining brightly. Prabhupada's always shining brightly. Nothing from Srila Prabhupada is covered by the material modes of nature ever, whether it's a casual conversation or this or that. And everything from Srila Prabhupada is from the Golokara Premadana Harinam Sankirtan. It's from the transcendental realm, in the same way that anything and everything emanating from Srila Shukadev Goswami is transphenomenal. Nothing's influenced by the modes of nature. Yes, and whether Prabhupada's making a joke or whatever, nothing's influenced by the modes of nature. And everything from Srila Prabhupada. Actually, I have one. Yeah, actually, someone on a Facebook thread wrote that she read Srila Prabhupada Sastra, and she wrote her favorite sentence. It's on page 20, and their favorite sentence is Srila Prabhupada gives perfect and complete darshan all the time. Yes. So everything from Srila Prabhupada reveals truth and simultaneously is non-different from the truth that it reveals. And that's why whether we understand it or we're irritated by it or we're inspired by it, everything from every vibration, every motion from Srila Prabhupada, every act, everything from Srila Prabhupada, it's transcendentally transformational. It impacts and has a shift in consciousness because it's coming from that realm, whether we agree with it or not agree with it. Yeah.
Sounds like a very 70s hermeneutic, Prabhu.
The 1970s, yes, yeah, that's what I'm hearing a lot. That's what I'm hearing a lot. What I'm hearing a lot is from especially old timer devotees that, and but by the way, I take that as a compliment that you're calling it a 1970s hermeneutic.
It was actually meant as a compliment.
Yeah, okay. I'm hearing from a lot of devotees like, yeah, this is what we used to hear, and now like
Yeah.
we hardly hear that anymore. Even like, oh, it's kind of like it's passé to say that. It's not, you're not galloping with the herd of independent thinkers if you say things like that, So yeah, very 1970s hermeneutic. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Keeping it old school.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea that Srila Prabhupada is a Shakti-Vaisha avatar was like, I don't know if that was a 70s thing or if that came later. I believe it was Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami who said he was a Shakti-Vaisha avatar. Because I heard that in a further anecdotal story about him, that a devotee who had been thinking about that went to him and said, you said that Srila Prabhupada was a Shakti Vaisha avatar, and he asked the question, which Shakti is he an Vaisha of? So he was like inquiring further into that. So that was that when I joined in the 90s, that was like well understood, and it was a fundamentalist, literalist. Prabhupada is the authority. There's no discriminating or using Shastra to disprove. There was that wasn't a concept. Like it wasn't a thing. There was no idea that you would independently with your own thinking disprove Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, I'd say that it's. I mean, I don't know exactly when. I mean, I'm sure it started somewhere in the 70s. We could find roots in the 70s, but it's really gained momentum the past 20 years, especially the past 10 years. So I'm glad. But yeah, what you grew up with in Krishna consciousness in the 90s was that 1970s hermeneutic. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have seen it in the presence of Srila Prabhupada and some of his disciples who were influenced by, in quotes, the Radhakund Babajis.
Yeah.
To abandon Srila Prabhupada, and that was the attack vector that was used. You'll find something that Srila Prabhupada said and then disprove it on the basis of some statement of a previous acharya or shastra to demonstrate that he's actually not bona fide.
Yeah, that was definitely alive and well in Prabhupada's time. If we read Prabhupada's letters, he was dealing with that. He was endeavoring to protect his followers from that. And then it's just, and it's so much more alive and well today.
Yeah, I have I've got two lines that I would like to pursue from here, but so one of them is very clear to me, and the second one was it's disappeared right now, so I'm going to go with the first one. So shout outs to my homeboy Sridhar Srinivasa Das, who we had on the show. He's written the book Female Diksha Gurus, Do We Need Them? I don't know what your position is on that, and you may differ from his, but his point that he made in the interview, the discussion that we had with him, was he said that for those born outside Varsha, for those born outside the Varnashram system, outside the Aryan civilization, for them, Shastra consists of Bhashya, commentaries on the Shastra written by acharyas. So the statement that Srila Prabhupada Shastra is like fully consistent with that he said that it would be, it's not bona fide according to like orthodox scripture to distribute the Srimad Bhagavatam to people on the street. However, to distribute the Srimad Bhagavatam with the Bhashya of Srila Prabhupada is the actual orthodox prescription for people in Kali Yuga.
That's nicely said. I'm in agreement with that. That resonates with my understanding of Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, just what comes to me is like there's so many cautions, like even for those endeavoring to follow bhakti yoga, like not to jump to the 10th canto. Don't jump to those chapters in the 10th. That chapters 29 to 32, 33, like that. At the same time, even going back to 1970, Prabhupada would encourage distribute Krishna book. You're given the 10th canto. And it's like, oh well, that's against that whole principle. Well, because whoever gets it is someone who's not following principles, doesn't even know what Bhagavatam is. But they're getting 10th canto they're getting it through the Bhashya of Srila Prabhupada, so they're protected.
The most personal is the most general. Last night we went to the Hare Krishna Saturday feast in the nearby town, 45-minute drive, and we're standing in front of the book table. Cain is there, and he's reading the Bhagavad Gita in a reading group, and the Bhagavatam set is there, and he's asking, "Have you read these books?" And myself and another devotee were like, "Yeah, we've read these." And Yoginath Krishna was like, "Yeah, I've got like 1 or 2 more cantos to go and I finished it." And he's like, "Oh, there's just so many books there. Like, how could I read all of that?" He's like struggling to read the Bhagavad Gita, and he doesn't read much. And then the Krishna book is right there. And he's like, "What about this one?" And I'm like, "Well, this is actually a summary of the 10th canto." And I'm thinking exactly that don't jump over the lotus feet of Krishna straight to the head. And here's this Krishna book where Prabhupada has summarized what is in the other edition, the 4 volumes of the 10th canto. And I'm just like, well, Prabhupada's done it, and he must have done it in a way that's appropriate. It's the combination of his Bhashya on that, and it must contain within it all the philosophical contextualization of the first 9 cantos. And I'm like, you should read this one. Because I'm hearing that you may not get to it if you try to go jump straight into the set. So just if you wanted to take one book as your next book to read, take the Krishna book. Yeah.
Beautiful. And that was so much the spirit, or an aspect of the spirit of Srila Prabhupada, because he was systematically giving with purport starting from 1st canto, 2nd canto, and he didn't know how long his manifest pastimes in that Vapu form would be, and he wanted to make sure that the world had Krishna book, that the world had those pastimes. And so, and his intention was that people might certainly, and I want them to get this, and they might not have read Bhagavad Gita or Ishopanishad or 1st canto, and they're protected and energized by the Bhashya of Srila Prabhupada.
And I'd like to make one more kind of observation. You might be wrong. You could be completely wrong, but I don't think anybody could argue that you're presenting something new. Like, it is the 70s hermeneutic that you're presenting. And if it's wrong, it was wrong in the 70s, and it's basically what Srila Prabhupada taught. So it's kind of like, if you're wrong, then the whole thing is become a Christian, the whole thing's wrong in that case. It seems to me that departing from this presentation is a fundamental departure from Srila Prabhupada's movement, Srila Prabhupada as he presented himself. And having said that, I'm going to present a counter argument from Hridayananda Das Goswami, which is that once we study what Srila Prabhupada actually says, he actually instructs us to use the triple Praman.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of self-defeating in the fact that we can start with this hermeneutic that you presented, but once we approach Srila Prabhupada using that hermeneutic, the next phase is that we arrive at Srila Prabhupada commands us to be independently thoughtful and to and introduces us to the triple Praman. So it would be kind of like an attachment to a neophyte level for us to ignore the actual instruction that we were given.
Okay. Yeah. We addressed that in the essay. We addressed that. I'll mention yesterday, and just a little over 24 years ago, I had about a 3-hour conversation in person with Vidayanand Maharaj and Brahmatirtha Prabhu. They saw and they got. I sent them Srila Prabhupada Sastra. They read it and they wrote to me. They said, "We want to talk to you in person." So I had an in-person conversation with them yesterday at the Bhaktivedanta Institute at the Bhaktivedanta Institute in Gainesville, which is about a 25-minute drive from where I live in Alachua. So and it was a very enlivening conversation, very enriching. And in Srila Prabhupada Shastra, well, one thing I say there more than once. One thing I say there more than once is because again I quote, some of the articles from ICJ 2022, including Vidayanand Maharaj's article. And at our talk yesterday, I had copies of Srila Prabhupada Shastra and Brahmatirtha gave out photocopies of Vidayanand Maharaj's article. So our conversations were based on our writings. Very enlivening, very, very enlivening. And so I say in Srila Prabhupada Shastra, I say, look, I'm not claiming to understand what Vidayanand Maharaj or Professor Graham Schweig or Joshua Green or the other, maybe I'm not understanding them. And some of those authors have said, oh, you're not representing me properly. And okay, I'm doing my best. And yeah, probably I'm not understanding. Okay. And still, the principles and points that I'm making are important to say. And maybe if I really understood what some of them are saying, they're actually in agreement with the principles in Srila Prabhupada Shastra. Great. So I'm not claiming to be the authority on what Vidayanand Maharaj is writing, or what Professor Graham Schweig is writing. Okay, I'm doing my best and I'm open to correction. At the same time, I do feel 100% clear on behalf of Srila Prabhupada. What's in Srila Prabhupada, the principles there need to be expressed and shared. And so, in Vidayanand Maharaj's writing, he writes a lot about the neophytes or those who are fanatics. And one thing I write is, well, I'm not sure what Vidayanand Maharaj who he would consider fanatic. Maybe he would consider some of those who adhere to the principles in Srila Prabhupada Shastra as neophyte and fanatic with absurd ideas and narrow-minded, and they're not independently thoughtful. I don't know. At the same time, my view is, that I endeavor to be and to encourage others to be independently thoughtful. And that these principles of Srila Prabhupada Shastra is, for me, it's the most enlivening foundation to support and inspire independent thoughtfulness. And independently thoughtful within, let's call it, the distinction between mental speculation and permissible philosophical speculation. So independent, and that's what Ishtagoshti is about. What's your realization? What's your realization? And I endeavor to engage in those discussions in the container of realizations of everything coming through Prabhupada is transcendental and infallible. And then, okay, how do we understand that? What's your realization? And so within the context of anything coming from Srila Prabhupada, I don't understand that. Okay. And in the spirit of being independently thoughtful, rather than let me check Shastra to see. Now, in the spirit of, okay, that's something coming from Srila Prabhupada, and like it seems bizarre, it seems absurd, it seems contradictory to this. I wonder how it's true. I know it's true. I know it's coming from a transcendental place, from a place of full compassion, from a place of full transcendental, transphenomenal love. I'm not seeing how it's true. In a childlike spirit of discovery, I wonder how it's true. And let me engage in that spirit of discovery, in a spirit of being independently thoughtful, like that. And so yes. So, and I want to clarify. It's not that I don't read or hear anything other than from Srila Prabhupada. As I write, whether I'm reading Carl Rogers or whether I'm reading the Sandarbhas by Jiva Goswami. Actually, over the past decade, I've read Tattva Sandarbha and Bhagavat Sandarbha, Paramatma Sandarbha, Krishna Sandarbha, the Bhaktivinoda Thakur, or whether I'm reading spiritually based personal development from Stephen Covey, or whether I'm reading Saint Teresa of Avila, The Interior Castle. I read so many things, and I hear so many things. Whatever I'm hearing or reading, I'm endeavoring to receive it, process it, absorb it, understand it through the pure lenses of Srila Prabhupada. And so again, let's say if I'm going to the writings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur or Jiva Goswami, which I do, I'm not going there to like, let's see if we can confirm what Prabhupada says, or maybe Prabhupada's kind of off on this one. No. And if there's ever discrepancy or an apparent contradiction between previous acharyas and Prabhupada, which there are, then Srila Prabhupada is Shastra. I accept Srila Prabhupada. That's what it means that Srila Prabhupada is my current, direct, living link to Krishna's Parampara. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Narahari Sarkar, Srila Sanatan Goswami. They're not speaking to me directly. They're perfect and infallible. Yeah, they're perfect and infallible. And their direct purpose isn't to speak to the spirit soul inside this body that took birth in 1960 like that. So I understand the previous acharyas through Srila Prabhupada.
I've got a joke for you.
I'm ready.
This is about Srila Prabhupada, taking his statements out of context. It's my favorite one. The paper, The Final Order.
Yes.
The Ritvik kind of thing. Here's the real final order of Srila Prabhupada. Eat the spiritual master.
Mm.
It's from a conversation where they're walking or they're in a car ride, and someone's saying, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada, these people, they're making the argument that, one should eat food in the mode of goodness, and the cow is an animal in the mode of goodness, so therefore eating the cow is eating food in the mode of goodness." Yeah. And then Srila Prabhupada says, well, the spiritual master is transcendental, so eat the spiritual master. Boom. It's the real final order from Srila Prabhupada, and the reason why ISKCON has failed is because we have not taken it seriously. Okay, it's a joke.
Yeah.
But the counterpoint to Srila Prabhupada's Shastra seems to be that and it's not immediately apparent why this is so, but if you think it through logically, you do end up at the Srila Prabhupada's culturally conditioned position. That the two are very closely correlated.
Yes.
Perhaps here's a speculation or something to throw out. The zonal acharyas and the guru issue within ISKCON. So there was a transference of the 70s hermeneutic of Srila Prabhupada to Srila Prabhupada's successors in the zonal acharyas. Yeah. And then it was demonstrable that they were fallible, they were culturally conditioned. And so a lot of people, they were like, well, throw the baby out with the bathwater, like the transference of the hermeneutic to these next ones, it's kind of like do we say that the guru system and the conception of guru in ISKCON as it was, promulgated directly after the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada was defective, and in what way, and what does that mean about the application of that hermeneutic to Srila Prabhupada? There is a clear line you can see if you go back. What's a succinct way of describing it? The fall downs and the demonstrable fallibility of the zonal acharyas, I think, has contaminated the conception of Srila Prabhupada when you look back through it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, everything you just said, I feel resonant with. I see validity in what you said. Yeah, I mean, my thoughts would be to, that right. So if you take that hermeneutic and then apply it to someone, and I'm not making comments specifically about any particular individual, but you use the word demonstrably, like we don't need to get into details, like, and if you apply so I'm saying everything from Srila Prabhupada, transcendental, nothing from Srila Prabhupada is in any way influenced by mundane culture, the modes of nature. Sure, Srila Prabhupada, in co-creating with Sri Krishna his appearance, he can and does use a particular culture and education at Scottish Churches College and turn of the century 1900 British Raj culture. Prabhupada can use that, but he's not influenced by it. So everything from Prabhupada is completely transcendental, right? No influence by modes of nature. So if we take that true conception when applied to Prabhupada and apply it to someone who is subtly or overtly or even egregiously or grossly influenced by modes of nature, some subtle material sattva, or just tamas and rajas and greed and envy, you got disaster. You got catastrophe.
Yeah. Look, I'm just going to say it straight up. I can see that if you are a guru in ISKCON and your disciples consider you to be as good as God, and they take in everything that you say, and in many cases, disciples in ISKCON are very weak in using the triple Praman to evaluate the statements or the behavior of their ISKCON, rubber stamped gurus, their ISKCON kind of provided gurus, because they apply the same kind of hermeneutic to them. They collapse the three, and it's like whatever the guru says is, and I don't even need to check it or anything. If you were one of those gurus and you saw your disciples doing that to you, and you go, I am actually conditioned by the three modes, and I'm not all that, and these people are treating me this way, I can see how you would arrive at the conclusion that by extension, by generalization of my personal experience, I also treated Srila Prabhupada that way. So ergo, it is possible, maybe probable, maybe even certain that Srila Prabhupada was just like me, a guy who was doing his thing, conditioned by the modes, and his disciples, that's me, considered him to be, perfect and complete and everything. I can see how you could arrive at that conclusion and then write an article about it and publish it in ICJ, not to name any names.
Hare Krishna. Thanks for expressing. Yeah, actually, what you just expressed is it's like completely aligned, because at the end of, after Srila Prabhupada Sastra, I include some endorsements. One is from Hanuman Prabhu there in New Zealand, and another is from Medua Prabhu, who he's served and directed the Festival of India. He's a very inspiring devotee for me, Medua Prabhu. He's done that service since the 70s, came to Prabhupada's movement in the early 70s. And he wrote that. He kind of analyzed the conceptions, kind of just as you said it. He said, Leah, one thing, well, I'm a guru, and in some ways we're all gurus in different ways. I'm a guru, and well, I'm kind of struggling to go on with Krishna consciousness, by Prabhupada's mercy. So yeah, and I'm subject to mistakes and illusions and cheating. So yeah, so Prabhupada's a guru, and I'm like a guru. Yeah, so I guess Prabhupada's kind of in the same category. And then Madhura kind of unravels that uh, risky misconception. Yeah.
Atmavan Manyate Jagat.
Perfect quote for that principle. The Freudian principle of projection, and you just gave the Sanskrit for it.
Yeah, which is really a statement that the most personal is the most general. One generalizes the world from one's personal experience. It's pretty much the statement, isn't it?
Yeah, Atmavan Manyate Jagat. Yeah, that's and there's a lot of pain and disaster happening, and yeah, and it's not decreasing, it's increasing from my perception in different sectors of the organization and the movement.
Let's expand it even further. Let's generalize it even more and get your take on this. The Bhagavatam itself is a collection of the greatest hits of the time, like the best material kind of understandings with Krishna consciousness added to it.
Yeah.
And so it's a combination of like temporal, fallible kind of ideas with Krishna consciousness. So if we take the 5th canto, for example, Srila Shukadev Goswami is presenting what people thought about the universe and the cosmology and how it all works at the time, a generally kind of understood, worldview, and he's adding Krishna consciousness to it. But we shouldn't really take that literally. We should just understand that, we can dismiss the temporal kind of specifics about how the universe is structured and everything, and just take the Krishna conscious essence from it. It's essentially the cultural conditioning of Shukadev Goswami argument. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thoughts is yeah, okay. I wouldn't want to, like, let's say, I'd be hesitant to go in front of Srila Prabhupada and go, it's like, oh, Prabhupada, I've realized this part of the Bhagavatam really just reveals Shukadev Goswami's material cultural conditioning. Isn't that intelligent, Srila Prabhupada? I mean,
however, that's a big that's almost non-controversial in ISKCON today. That idea.
Yeah, for me, it's not controversial. For me, it's just like, no way. No way. I mean, that's people's point of view in ISKCON, like that. But for me, it's like, that's not my point of view. And it's like, I wouldn't want to go in front of Prabhupada with that point of view. Yeah, this part here is Shukadev Goswami's cultural conditioning, and this line in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, that's your cultural conditioning. Good thing I got enough brain to realize that. You want to go in front of Srila Prabhupada and present that? Hare Krishna.
Yeah, you might be wrong, but it's not a departure from the 70s hermeneutic. It's like it's the original ISKCON conception. So further from there, now
since you gave an example from Cosmology, 5th canto. So
yes.
Actually, practically, I start the book Srila Prabhupada Sastra with a personal example related to that. Okay, so I'll share. I'm not sure if you read the essay or your viewers have, but I kind of start there. So since you went to Cosmology, 5th canto, I'll share something personal. What is most personal is most general. Seems to be a theme here. Okay,
It is.
Yeah. So I share a story, a personal story. So then when actually, so for about 3 years, my only service was to consume massive quantities of prasadam. And I wasn't doing it in the name of service to God. It was Srila Prabhupada was running a Krishna Consciousness Center in State College, Pennsylvania. It was my university town. I would just go 3 times a week for prasad, and that Prabhupada said that's our secret weapon. So eventually, my heart got purified after 3-4 years, and when I backpacked around Europe in summer of '83, I started to chant japa. And okay, all right. So I'll just fast forward a bit. Actually, I studied at some academic institution in the Negev Desert, 83, 84. It was called WUJ's, World Union of Jewish Students in Israel. And then after that, because then I was chanting 16 rounds, and I joined the Bhakti Yoga Ashram outside of Tel Aviv in Ra'anana, Israel. Since outside of Tel Aviv, the ISKCON devotees had a center there. And that's why I first joined. And I wasn't completely convinced, but I thought, let me give it a try. Okay. And then after about 2 months in the ashram, as like Bhakti Dave, like that, I decided to visit home and to visit my family in Philadelphia, my parents and my sister. Now at that time, actually soon after I moved into the ashram, I started being plagued by doubts. Till then, I thought like, wow, I wasn't looking for God or spirituality or anything, but this philosophy makes more, for 3 years I was reading Prabhupada's books. This makes more sense than anything. So if I consider myself an honest person, I owe it to myself to try the lifestyle, because it says to realize these truths, practice the lifestyle. And then once I started committing, then my mind started attacking me with doubts. And like I would read in Prabhupada's books, and I would find critical, I'd be critical, find flaws and contradictions. And it was tormenting doubts. So while I was visiting the Philadelphia area, after maybe 2 or 3 days, I was visiting a home of some friends of my parents, and I won't go into all the details, but then out of the woodwork came like 5 fellows, I'll call them thugs. And they said, hello, David. He said, my name is Mark. We want to talk to you about Krishna consciousness. So at first I thought, oh, that's great. I love to talk about Krishna consciousness. Anyhow, after 2 or 3 hours of talk, I realized they're not really serious to exchange about philosophical realizations or this or that. And then at some point I said, okay, I feel complete. I think I'll leave now. And then Mark said, if you try to leave, we'll block your way. Actually, my mother was there, my father was there, and then I realized, and I wasn't 12 years old at the time. I was 23 years old. I was a young man. So I was like, I'm being held against, this is a felony. I'm not going to get into the whole kidnapping chapter of my life, but anyhow, so after about 6, 7 days, I sort of convinced them that I had seen the light and I don't want this chanting anymore and like that. And I didn't go too quick, because then they would know I was putting on a show, and I was just going step by step, playing psychological games and staying a few steps ahead. And then they were convinced, and they sent me to a rehabilitation center in Iowa. And so it was in Iowa City, and I got there. Now, some of my main doubts, tormenting, agonizing doubts, because I wanted to give myself 100% to Krishna consciousness, but then I can't, because this is wrong, this is stupid, was around stuff Prabhupada was saying about the cosmology and the planetary systems and the moon and the sun. Because I was educated, I took college courses in astronomy and things like that. Anyhow, I was at the rehab center in Iowa. After about 24 hours there, I escaped because the thugs left, and I was with just some college students and some elderly ladies. And then I left because I knew they were not the type to tackle me on the street or something like that. But that's another chapter. It was the evening there at Iowa, and I was sitting in the living room, and there were some magazines on the table. One magazine was a popular science magazine. I looked at it, and the title was about cosmography and cosmology and astronomy. So that it's an interesting topic for me. So I turned to it, and it was like the scientists of that time. It was 1984, and they were describing that actually the mathematics indicates that the universe actually has 14 dimensions. Exactly the number 14. The universe has 14 dimensions. Only 4 of them do we have access to with our senses, length, height, width, and time. and the other 10 are not accessible to our senses. And then I thought to myself, and this was a turning point. This was clearly Super Soul intervened with that magazine, because I said, that's exactly what Prabhupada's saying. 14 planetary systems, each with its own time relativity. And I was saying, like, okay, so if like this whole Prabhupada, this is just like some sort of like primitive regressive thought, like that. But then actually the most modern astrophysicists and studying the quantum nature and into the very element of time, and they're saying that like time is calculated by the atom. Well, that's what Prabhupada is saying, and so that strengthened my trust in Prabhupada. And there's so many examples like that in my personal story. You can think of some where Prabhupada's saying this thing, they're just, these are absurd, this and that. And then a few years later, the modern scientists come out with, actually, what we've now discovered is, and it's like, it's exactly what Prabhupada is saying. I have examples. I have examples here. I have examples in the booklet. One example? One example, this was, like there's the verse in Bhagavad Gita, Nitya Sarvagata Stanur, life is everywhere. Life is everywhere. Okay, so this was about 15 years ago. I'm reading on the internet. It's the article's about blood falls. So there's some place deep beneath the Antarctic where there's no oxygen, there's no light gets in, so life couldn't exist there. And then another article I found a few years later where just a temperature, like hundreds and hundreds of degrees hotter than where life can possibly exist. And then in both of those places, they found life forms. Okay, but it was impossible. But now they need to revise their theories. Well, look, according to what Prabhupada's saying, according to Bhagavad Gita, no, life exists there in blood falls in the Antarctic, and life's in the underwater volcanic ash. So, or even basic, let's say something like if we're there in the 1950s, modern nutritional science in the 1950s would say like, Western modern nutritional science would just be like, well, no, you can't be happy. You can't be healthy on a vegetarian diet. No, you need at least this many servings of meat, like that. So what to speak of the 70s or now? Okay, now science has changed and happens to have changed in the direction that completely supports the diet that Srila Prabhupada is giving to us. So just examples like that. My experience there in Iowa, it just so that now more and more, and there's things I read from Prabhupada where I'm not getting. So now it's just easier and easier for me to be in like, okay, I wonder how that's true. A metaphor I give in Srila Prabhupada's Sastra. Let's say if we have a road map. Okay, I'm in Florida. Let's say it's a road map, and I want to get to New York. Okay, all right. So I don't know if I trust this map, but it says, okay, go north to Interstate 10, and then go east, and after certain distance, you're gonna find something called Jacksonville. And I go, oh yeah, there's Jacksonville. All right, and then go north on Interstate 95, and at this many miles, you'll find something called the border of Georgia. Keep going, you'll find something called South Carolina. And he's like, okay, well, 100 times this map, it's like exactly conforming with my experience. So with Srila Prabhupada, since I have thousands of experience where it's like, that doesn't make any sense. And just like, oh, the dots connect at higher trans-rational levels than anything connects in and I have a PhD. I got all this Western education. I got PhD, master's degree, bachelor's of science. And, I'm very glad for my Western education. I'm endeavoring to use it in Prabhupada's service. But what I'm finding just more and more as the years and decades go on, that everything I get from Prabhupada, which of course is from Shukadev Goswami, Vyasadeva, it includes and transcends, and it includes and transcends what's there in the Western sciences. And I have just so much experience of that. I just shared an experience from 40 years ago in Iowa City. Hare Krishna.
Wonderful.
It brings to mind the I don't know who said it. A little bit of science makes you an atheist,
Yeah.
and a lot of science makes you a believer. I always, as a preacher,
I've heard that attributed to Werner Heisenberg, something like the first sip from the cup of science, and you'll be an atheist, or the first gulp, and you'll be an atheist. But at the bottom of the cup, at the bottom of the cup, God is waiting for you. Werner Heisenberg.
okay, the author or the inventor of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle and quantum mechanics. As a preacher, I always would say, in the beginning, the standard lines. It's due to the limited senses of the human being, and what we can see, and the descriptions here are, things that aren't perceptible to the human senses. And then in the back of my mind, as someone whose undergraduate studies were in science as well, is like, that's not falsifiable. That's just basically, you can basically say anything now that you've invented that as a fundamental premise. And then one day my son, at age 8 or so, asks me, "Dad, what's quantum mechanics?" And I was like, "I've heard of it, but I honestly couldn't tell you." So I went and just got all the books I could on quantum mechanics and started reading them, which is how I came to know about Heisenberg and the uncertainty principle. And I discovered the most fascinating thing, which was that scientists, because science, as we know it, is based on the generalization of the personal experience of the experimenter through their senses, which is a generally understood principle. But people are like, well, we don't have access to any other way of examining reality. So if we don't accept that as the fundamental principle of science, you basically can make up anything, and it's not provable or disprovable. But in quantum mechanics, they actually arrived at the point where they could make an experiment that eliminates the senses of the experimenter, and they found out that the universe presents itself completely differently at that level, which is the famous double slit experiment. And that opened this idea that, like, the universe as we see it is actually a manifestation of the senses in the mind of the human body and the human form. And so now in the modern world, you have guys like Donald Hoffman. The Case Against Reality is his book, and he's an evolutionary biologist who arrived at it, through the examination of visual sensory of different living entities. So they are arriving at, it is it's a little bit of science makes you an atheist, and then if you go deep enough into it and you examine it enough, not trust the science like a belief in it, but if you actually take the time to dive into it, you'll find that this does not contradict it at all.
Yes.
So I'd like to put you through a purity test now. I've got two of them here. The purity test. The first one is the moon landing. So Srila Prabhupada arrived at a denial of the 1969 moon landing based on the 5th canto and its description that the moon is actually further away from the earth than the sun. And so as a result of that, he said, it simply cannot have been done the way they describe it. They're lying. They're cheating. What's your take on the moon landing?
Moon landing. Okay. Yeah. When we a purity test. Okay.
Stage one.
Yeah. So we can. Okay. So we can go to, so many things that in various discussions and Srila Prabhupada's movement, different comments and purports that are disturbing for many followers or aspiring followers of Srila Prabhupada. Some, as I'm sure you're aware, when Prabhupada came out with the 5th canto, many left. Many left the movement because they just, that was so much discordant with their understanding of reality. And there are other things, and in one sense, my preference is to focus on principles. I'm glad and ready to talk about any specific. So the principle is Srila Prabhupada's Shastra, meaning everything from Srila Prabhupada is every utterance is everything he writes. It's infallible. It's not influenced by the modes of nature. It's not influenced. It's not culturally conditioned. And just to be exposed to Prabhupada's vibration is purifying, transcendentally transformational. Prabhupada is in that same trans-rational samadhi as Shukadev Goswami or Srila Vyasadeva. Everything, including everything he said about things in ways that it doesn't conform with my understanding. So if we want to get to specifics, okay. Now here, my understanding from Srila Prabhupada, you're talking about the moon. Okay, my understanding from Srila Prabhupada is just like, okay, like really for decades and decades, in addition to reading Prabhupada's books and hearing his lectures, I read through his conversations. And I've just recently finished the 11-volume transcribed Bhagavatam set. I'm now reading his Chaitanya Charitamrita lectures, and I've read all his letters, like that. And so for someone to accept Srila Prabhupada cleanly, my view is they don't need to believe that Apollo didn't go to the moon. Okay? And I'm not saying that, in some twisted way, there's many places, not like one or two obscure. There's many, many places I could go in my notes and share them with you now or afterward, where Prabhupada indicates, they went to the moon. And what use is it? They got some moon rocks or okay. Now, maybe, again, because everything from Prabhupada is pure, transcendental, infallible. It's truth, and it's non-different from the truth it reveals, so it's purifying vibration. So how do we understand that? We talked about that earlier in our conversation. What's the context? There are many statements from Prabhupada where he indicates they went from the moon. He even in his books, there indications like that. And there's just what you said. So my understanding from Srila Prabhupada is he's giving 3 possibilities about Apollo. He's given 3 possibilities, okay? The most unlikely of the 3 is by accident, by mistake, they went to Rahu, okay? That's one possibility he gives. Another possibility is they went to the moon, in quotes. They went to the moon, in quotes, but they didn't go to Chandraloka. They didn't go to Chandraloka because, again, the 14-dimensional universal science, because we don't have access to the realm, what to speak of Vaikuntha. We don't have access to the demigods' realms like that. And basic example. Okay, so right. So let's say if I go to Paris, and then because I don't have, so I get to the airport and get to security, and then I don't have the right papers, and so they send me back. So then I come here and I go, and Sitapati and Dana Devi say, "Oh, what was Paris like?" "Oh yeah, I was in Paris." "Yeah, well, there's these big windows, and outside there's airplanes, and then there's some travel offices where you can get tickets, and then there's a place for Delta baggage returns. I saw Paris." And you ask me, well, I mean, do you see the Louvre, the Arc de Triomphe? Do you see the rivers and the sights and the city life? I go, no, there isn't any of that in Paris. No, there isn't any of that. No, Paris is, there's some airline companies. That's all Paris is. So in a sense, I went to Paris, and but I didn't really. I couldn't see Paris. I didn't have the papers. So Prabhupada many times gives the possibility that maybe they went to the moon, but they didn't go to Chandraloka. That's for sure. 100% they didn't go to Chandraloka. That's the extra dimensional realm that, because if we read Sariputta Prabhu's books, for example, books like Mysteries of the Sacred Universe, Veda Cosmology and Cosmography, he describes that the Bhagavatam is giving at least 4 different dimensional perspectives. And someone like Parikshit Maharaj and the sages, Shukadev Goswami he gives one perspective, kind of like we might see current day South Asia, another perspective from the demigods, another perspective from the pure devotional perspective, and another perspective, and at least 4 perspectives, maybe more. And Parikshit Maharaj can just shift because he's on that platform. So they definitely, 100% they didn't go to Chandraloka. Prabhupada gives the possibility maybe they went to Rahu. That's the least possible. Another possibility, they went to the so-called moon, but they didn't have the papers to get in, so all they saw was sand. And the third possibility Prabhupada gives is maybe they went to Arizona. Maybe
their real business is in Arizona. There was the quote that I had in the back of my mind, and you nailed
it. Yeah. So Prabhupada,
did you?
Yeah. So maybe they went to Arizona.
Did you know that they're about to release a big budget movie with Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson called "Fly Me to the Moon" about faking the moon landing?
I did not hear that. I'm intrigued to hear that. Actually, if you'd like,
comes out in June.
That's very
it comes out in June. I'm a card-carrying conspiracy theorist. I subscribe to the analysis based on empirical observation over time that what constitutes the news is fiction, and entertainment contains a lot of facts. And that both are part of a psychological operation on the human population. And a lot of what happens in fiction is preconditioning people for plot narrative developments that, the masterminds or the controllers of various institutions want people to act in the future. So they precondition them through fiction so that the narrative that they then play out in reality makes sense to them, and they don't need to study their lines to become extras. And to my analysis they're getting ready to reveal to people that they actually faked the moon landings. That's my take on that.
Thanks for sharing it. That's actually exciting for me to hear. And even the actors you mentioned there, it sounds like, I would imagine those actors must have some special open-mindedness to agree to play such a role. That, I haven't gone to a movie theater to see a movie in a long time. Of course, I actually, in Gainesville there was the movie about Prabhupada's biography produced by Yadubar and Vishaka Prabhu. So I went to that several years ago. But other than that, but that's a movie I would be very interested to see, because it relates to what Prabhupada is telling us. It relates to what Prabhupada is telling us. I'll just share in the back. Sariputta Prabhu, he passed away in 2008. Maybe around 2003 or so. He and I, with our families, we had an evening together, and we watched together Apollo 13. The Apollo 13. It was a movie at the time with some famous actors, and then it was nice because we were sharing with each other and commentary about, okay, so what this dialogue here, how does that relate to the different possibilities Prabhupada gives? And so so you're an advocate of, probably it was Arizona. I hear you. I hear you.
100%.
Yeah.
This is a slight digression, but among other things, we can see that all technologies that have been real, or any exploration that's been real, is followed up by massive exploitation of the niche. And this going to the moon demonstrates absolutely none of that. it's more consistent with having faked it than an actual discovery of a foreign land or a technological breakthrough of that level.
I hear you. I'm not inclined to argue. I guess okay. I guess my yeah. I mean, and as far as like the population of those who are in power, of academia and science and government, being possibly being sufficiently corrupt and wicked to run such a hoax, I'm not doubting the possibility. I guess the one thing I have is but okay, like I guess I'm like the way you described it. I'm not sure if they're that smart, and I'm just not sure because
Mhm.
what I know for sure is they're all. I'm not talking just about the moon thing and the possible hoax, but
I understand.
yeah, but the whole meta view of what you shared. Because what I know for sure, or from Prabhupada, is they're all being badly outsmarted by Maya. So whatever they're doing in manipulation and this and that, and I know there's a lot of truth to it. I'm not sure if there's as much kind of truth that they're deliberately doing that as you described. Could be, but they're just all being sucker punched and bewildered and bamboozled by Maya. So that's a perspective I'm sure about. So I just want to share that perspective.
Yeah, it's not inconsistent with what I said because they are captured by the three modes and they are the instruments of the three modes.
Yeah.
So they themselves are not like fully conscious of like the real nature of the universe, Krishna, the tattvas, and then deliberately doing the stuff. They're simply being puppeted by the modes, and they are the instruments by which ultimately the modes are bewildering. But the capture and the corruption goes all the way down, and everyone is ultimately being orchestrated by these transrational energies that are the Shakti of the Shaktiman. So yeah, so they don't have to be smart because the super soul is smart and is the three modes are using everyone perfectly.
Okay. So I appreciate how you responded to my doubt that what the paradigm you shared is completely possible within the context of Maya being trillions of times smarter than even the top corporate magnate or something like that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so the second and final stage of the purity test. This one comes from Krishnakirti, and he put it as a comment on I think your post about the Srila Prabhupada Shastra, and that is Srila Prabhupada's purport from the I can't remember where it is, maybe the 5th canto, about Lord Brahma and his sons who were born from his buttocks. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, and I'm not going to get this as a precise quote, I just want to put that up front, but it is along the lines of the homosexual appetite of one man for another is not for any sane man in the ordinary course of life. Something along those lines. What's your take on that?
Okay. Okay. So again, I get okay. So again, my focus tends to be on principle. That anything from Srila Prabhupada is divinely, transcendentally inspired. Nothing from Srila Prabhupada is materially, culturally conditioned. Okay. So the same with the moon or anything else or an apparent contradiction. All right. So if we want to get into details, then
The
okay.
devil is in the details.
Yeah. And okay. Well, so we discussed somewhat threadbare about the moon. That was fun. We got into some details there, and I'm willing to do that on anything from Prabhupada. So it's okay. So I understand what you said wasn't exact quote, but I've read the fifth canto many times. So okay. So basically, my understanding is that so that Prabhupada has a purport in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, right? That spiritual realization and sex pleasure go ill together. Okay. And another purport from the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. Prabhupada just tells it as it is.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah, so any material desire, and the epitome, the culmination of material desire is the sex pleasure. Is sex pleasure. Any of that is going to tend to be alienating us from our blissful spiritual identity, from ourself, turning to ourselves and self-realization, and turning towards Krishna and an attitude of devotion. Material desire is designed to take us away from that. You can say the archetype, the epitome of that is sex desire. So that's it. That's the essence. Doesn't mean sex desire is bad. Dharma viruddha bhuteshu kamospi bharatarshaba. Anything material can be transformed into the spiritual, including sex desire. That's the whole science of bhakti yoga. So bhakti yoga is very world embracing. It's not world rejecting. So I want to make money. Okay, well let's make money, and okay, maybe it's material. Let me use it for a kirtan program, for distribute prasad, to purchase Prabhupada's books. I'm using money. So okay, but that takes realization of how to apply and integrate the principle of yukta vairagya to utilize Krishna's energy, including the energy of sex desire, in Krishna's service. So in one sense, not in the most real sense, our nature is Satchidananda, blissful, eternal, loving, free, liberated, secure, fearless. That's our nature. So to identify and pursue any of those alienating material desires that take us away from our nature and take us to envy, greed, jealousy, and all that stuff that creates war in ourselves and war in our families and war on the planet, to identify with any of that is insane. So many comments from Prabhupada to support what I just said. It's all insane. Any hanging on to any material desire. Okay, all right, then certain types of material desire indicate a soul that's relatively less or more aligned with its pure sattvic, Shuddha sattvic nature. Now, vital in this conversation is, so it's what I'm presenting there's a continuum. It's all insane and things like that, but vital in this conversation. So Srila Prabhupada, okay, so let's say terms like sexism and racism and classism and to be homophobic, terms like that. Prabhupada sometimes accused of things like that. Okay. So, all right. So basically, Dehinos minyata dehe komram yoganamjura, tata dehantara praptir dirastra namuyati. As the embodied soul continually passes from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time when the soul leaves this body. We're not the body, we're spirit soul. And we might be inhabiting a particular body that's 63 years old, from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, white male, or a body that's, took birth in a place called Peru or New Zealand, and it's a body that's in a form called female or male. Okay, but we're not the body, just like we're not the car we drive. we're all familiar with these metaphors, right? We're not French because we're driving a Renault, or German because we're driving a Mercedes. That's just the car. So to see someone, to regard, to relate to someone as anything related to their body, rather than to see and regard them as the timeless, eternal spirit soul that animates the body. That's sexism, that's racism, that's homophobia, that's classism, that's nationalism. Okay. Of course, we might acknowledge, you're driving a blue Volkswagen. I acknowledge you're in that body, but it doesn't mean you're German or you're blue. You're the driver of the car. Okay, so we might acknowledge we're in particular vehicles that have, maybe this sexual preference, that sexual preference, this gender body, that color of skin, this color of skin. But we're seeing the spirit soul. To any extent, to whatever extent, I'm seeing you according to any bodily designation, any upadi, related to sexual preference of the body, or related to skin color or country of birth, or et cetera, et cetera. That means I'm sexist, racist, homophobic, like that. That's what it means. So, important in this discussion, there has never walked on this planet. There has never walked on this planet anyone as non-homophobic, non-sexist, and non-racist as A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. There's never been anyone as non-sexist, non-homophobic, and non-racist as Srila Prabhupada. For me, it's just like an obvious, clean statement.
Mm.
Oh, Prabhupada is always, infallibly, to a degree that's inconceivable to me, and maybe to most of us, he's seeing the spirit soul, and he's not confusing like I do the person with the body, or the impulses of the body towards having sex with this kind of body or that kind of body. He's never seeing a person and according to anything material. And so there's never been anyone as non-homophobic, as non-sexist, and non-racist as Srila Prabhupada. And he's sharing spiritual science to help us understand, of course, who we are is not the car, but the driver of the car, and to compassionately, lovingly help us to understand our car. Okay, I'm in this kind of car. Okay, right now I'm in a body of the human male. So I got, human male, some human male psychology going on. And Prabhupada's teachings help me understand the car. Not to indulge in misidentification, but to help me use the car in a way that supports liberation. Or someone's in the body of someone with this sexual preference or that sexual preference, or the body of a female human. Okay, and it just means okay, let me look, let me see where those tendencies that are described, right? And in every body there are advantages and disadvantages for achieving the ultimate goal of life. Bhakti yoga, service to Krishna, right? And so Prabhupada's describing the car, and we get to look at, okay, right, there's a verse men who are camels, pigs, dogs, and asses. So he's talking different psychologies of men who are conditioned in different material ways. All right. So just wow, Prabhupada's really against men. Yeah, he's caring for spirit souls in the male human body. And I get to take a look. Where am I being like an ass? Where am I being like the camel described there? And I say, that helps me to see myself, and that supports me to use this car for the truly higher purposes of life. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So I think my brain works. It generates thoughts and things. We're speaking inside a cultural context. You know, the statements that show up is the ones that, this one here, for example, people will charge that, oh, this is part of Srila Prabhupada's cultural conditioning, his cultural milieu, his where he, attitudes he picked up from Scottish Church's college, his own personal kind of thoughts and preferences about it. They might even go into like psychological analysis of Srila Prabhupada himself, like his own sexuality or psychology in order to say something about this. So it is the case, I assert, that the only areas where people make these kind of statements and have these kind of issues and controversies are ones in which the statements that Srila Prabhupada makes contradict some kind of cultural conditioning of the milieu in which they're happening. If we lived in a society where it's generally accepted that choose any non-controversial statement of Srila Prabhupada, therefore the statement is non-controversial. The only statements that Srila Prabhupada makes that are controversial are the ones that conflict with our cultural conditioning. In the current cultural milieu, can't say...
This is an excellent point.
Yeah, so in the current cultural milieu, if we lived in Saudi Arabia or somewhere where homosexuality is openly condemned, it would be non-controversial. We wouldn't even be discussing it. But you and I live in a cultural environment where to make the statement that the homosexual appetite of one man for another is demonic and is not for any sane male in the ordinary course of life is a controversial statement to make. Not because it's intrinsically controversial, because statements are simply statements, but because everyone around us will disagree with that and say that, furthermore, it is bad to say such a statement. They'll say it's factually incorrect, that it is, as you addressed in your statement about it, it's homophobic, it's hate speech, it's they'll say those things, and then they'll also say it's factually incorrect. Now, your proposition is that Srila Prabhupada is Shastra, everything that he says is perfect and complete, and here you made very clear the distinction between the soul and the body, the vehicle, and the upadhis and the self. But this is a statement about a particular upadhi, and it's essentially an assertion that it is like in the material realm. Well, it's demoniac, so it belongs to the asuric category rather than Deva, and that it's not for any sane male in the ordinary course of life. I mean, that's a statement that, and this is why Krishna Kirti was like, he'll never agree to this because he will be crucified. The driver for all of this, we can't accept what Srila Prabhupada says, seems to be the statements he makes that are culturally inconvenient, culturally sensitive, culturally positions that we would be attacked if we were to just say, you know what, Srila Prabhupada says that homosexual appetite of one man for another is demoniac and it's not for any ordinary man, sane man in the ordinary course of life. To just state that as like, and this is a fact, immediately you're going to come under attack for saying that. Whereas the non-controversial statements culturally of Srila Prabhupada, like at the moment, you don't get burnt at the stake or cancelled on social media and in your professional career if you say, we are not these bodies. So that's a non-controversial statement of Srila Prabhupada within ISKCON. But the statements that are controversial are the ones like this one, which goes against the current cultural milieu. So, I mean, if I were to press you on the purity test, it would be like, do you accept that the statement of Srila Prabhupada is correct and accurate? And is it a fact that, the homosexual appetite of one man for another is demoniac and not for any sane male in the ordinary course of life? What are your thoughts on that?
I shared my thoughts on that, and I shared my thoughts on that in the context of my realization of where Prabhupada's coming from in his statement, and in the context of the totality of Srila Prabhupada's teachings. So my thoughts on that are, like, if I were to share more, I would give the same principles and the same examples. That any material desire is a form of insanity. We're envious of our actual blissful, loving nature. And then there can be some material desires that, are more towards the sattvic side of the continuum. Some are more towards the rajasic, dark tamasic. And so that's what, so that's what Prabhupada's giving us. And Prabhupada giving us so that statement you just read from Srila Prabhupada, or shared or paraphrased, that Prabhupada's giving that statement within the context and parameters of that principle. And then of that principle, all material desires are somewhere on the continuum of self-sabotaging insanity. And often Prabhupada uses vivid language to describe the intensity of that, to not in a way to disparage anyone. Again, same principle. Srila Prabhupada's not seeing someone according to any upadi. And so to the extent that we identify with any upadi related to the body, including the bodily sexual desires, that can be, I'm using that's, we're alienating ourselves from ourselves. That's against our best interest. We could use more colorful language. It's demoniac. It's sinful. Sin in the sense of, Saint Augustine says, we're not punished for sin. We're punished by sin. So, meaning that just by thinking in this way and acting in this way, where I'm alienated from myself, so you'll be punished for that. That's not where Prabhupada's coming from. But he's coming from, by indulging in such material desires that alienate ourselves from ourselves, then we experience disconnection and shame and fear and insecurity, which leads to hurt and wanting to hurt others and like that. So all material desires are somewhere in that continuum, and Prabhupada's coming from a place supporting us, sometimes in a way that's soft as a rose, and sometimes a way with language that feels hard as a thunderbolt. He's supporting us lovingly. He's supporting us lovingly to come to realization of who we are, spirit, soul, and to lessen our identification with that insanity. And then, the way you shared it, Sitapati Prabhu, reminds me, I think I'll find it pretty quickly, because, it reminds me, this is an excerpt from Srila Prabhupada Sastra, Perspectives on the Infallibility of Srila Prabhupada. I'm talking there, in that whole section, it's a section called Social Science. And I go into, some specifics, and I go into the principles about how Prabhupada criticizes racist and sexist and all of that. Go into it in some ways in the way I did here, and then I present it from some other perspectives also. Okay, so I'm just going to read. I'm just going to read one sentence. I'm not even going to give the context, but I just spoke some of the context. I'll read two sentences. We're illustrating here specific areas where, though Srila Prabhupada's statements are commonly perceived to be lacking intellectual respectability, they actually are consistent with social and mental health science research. Realizing this can importantly expand perspectives and perhaps minimize the possibility of misapprehending Srila Prabhupada due to our prejudicial view of how prejudiced he must be. And I think that's exactly what you just said. Well, my view is the objective view. And based on my view, which is based usually some form of modern, postmodern, culture like that, education, based on my view, Prabhupada is so prejudiced. But then I give examples in that chapter where in some areas where Prabhupada's criticized to be sexist and racist and this and that. And it's like anti-science and regressive thought, and it's backwards, it's primitive and like that. What Prabhupada's saying is just like exactly on the leading edge of modern social science findings. I'm not saying the leading edge of what's socially fashionable or politically correct, but the leading edge of modern social science findings. And so I caution that realizing this truth can importantly expand perspectives and perhaps minimize the possibility of misapprehending Srila Prabhupada due to our prejudicial view of how prejudiced he must be.
Very powerful. Yeah, what I hear, what I appreciate, and what I acknowledge you for, Prabhu, is not backing away from the principle and then dealing, not taking the, this is evidence of Srila Prabhupada's cultural conditioning, and which is the tack that some have taken in the face of this, we could call it a controversy or a clash with modern, postmodern cultural, norms of the day. And so not backing away from that, not taking that as an out, not turning it into that, and then also dealing intelligently, sensitively with the context of that and how that will land for people in the modern cultural context, attending to how they might take that, how they may misinterpret it, how it might be misapplied, which is an approach that I also see Kaunteya Das is taking, addressing some of the same. He's dealing very much with a lot of the specifics of these issues. He's tackling them head on. So yeah, I really appreciate that, and I acknowledge you for that. And for some, I fear you may have failed the purity test by not simply restating it and saying it's a fact and you have to accept it or you're in Maya. And that is what that is. And I'm satisfied with your answer personally. Also, I acknowledge you, Davey, for being so patient in listening. And I'd like to invite you to speak in 1 second, but I just want to pull in an openly gay man, a devotee, who tells us that, comment here, that the sons of Brahma actually fail the purity test for being gay. He says, I don't believe those demons who attack Lord Brahma for sex represent actual homosexuals. They were diverted from Brahma by the appearance of a beautiful woman whom they found to be more appropriate for satisfying their lust. So they actually failed the purity test themselves.
That's an interesting point. Thank you, Achutananda Prabhu.
Yes, we love you. Davey, your thoughts on the conversation to this point?
Just looking into this comment that Achutananda Das Prabhu put is like, one believing that you are this or that, something as powerful as a woman, like, a beautiful woman comes and they just like melt it and they go back to their natural state of being male and, being attracted to a female. Like, what? So it can tell a lot about how the psychological being of a person can be diverted, from one belief to another. Or at least being or believing they are this when in fact they are that, you know what I mean? Yeah. And
I appreciate that comment, and what I'm understanding, the essence of it for me gets to, Krishna's statement in Bhagavad Gita, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balavandrida, that the mind's flickering, and we have our flickering minds each moment like that. But even like flickering over the course of a few years, a lifetime, many lifetime, now I'm attracted to that, now I'm attracted to that. And that's why to identify with the particular flickering of the mind in one direction today, or for these 40 years, it's quite superfluous. And I've used that term in it, like kind of it it alienates the self from that steady consciousness and Krishna consciousness. And I appreciate Sitapati Prabhu, you mentioned about like with empathy, like Srila Prabhupada, he's feeling the pain. He's empathically feeling the pain of all the spirit souls who are identifying with those flickering material desires and are just frustrated and suffering, and he has the knowledge to free us. Hare Krishna.
Mhm.
Hare
Yeah,
Krishna.
totally. While you were commenting about this, it's something come up here. All of this flickering of the mind and the decisions that we make and whatever we make, is based on a situation that happens.
Yeah.
And that actually leads the way we behave or we try to be, to the extent that we just rob ourselves the potential of being happy and who we really are. That's
Yeah.
quite sad in a way. And appreciating how much you value, how much you are in different level of your realization of how Srila Prabhupada was, in a way, not in a way, but actually brutally compassionate
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the state of being of different human beings. Perhaps some human beings that have more capability or experience or state of being to be a bit more advanced than the others, so they can be more inquisitive and thinkers of why am I doing the things that I'm doing, and others are still swimming in this thought of I am my thought.
Yeah.
I am my belief, and this is who I am, and ferociously defend that. And if we don't agree with that, it's basically we are demonized, like you are this, you're homophobic, or you are racist, or whatever, whatever it's in their state of being. And then how Srila Prabhupada, was very in a way loving, with his cutting words of like, stop being where you are, because you're not meant to be in the way you are. You're not meant to be who you think you are. You are more than that. And taking things from that way, there is so much space for us to discover that actually what he is saying is truth. And maybe I'll have a little bit of more of openness here, or inquisitiveness, or curiosity to see exactly what he means by what he is saying.
Yeah.
Because he's not saying to minimize us or demonize us or to make us like broken. He's peeling all the concoctions and ideas and negative thoughts or whatever creation we put on ourselves. It's just like, this is not you, peeling off, peeling off. And I guess some people are feeling resistant to that, because it's like, it is me, who I am. This is what I created for myself. How dare you, And it is kind of painful to see some of the books of Srila Prabhupada now. They're removing this because the fear of like, we're going to be considered this and that, and there's not going to be potent, and the books is not going to be potent or anything like that. And you see how they are minimizing themselves and also minimizing Srila Prabhupada, who he really is. And who he is this gentle, loving person that came for us to rescue us. And yeah, I agree, in all the areas that you were speaking about Srila Prabhupada, he's infallible.
I appreciate your words, Donna Devi. Yeah, thanks for that. I'm moved and appreciative of your connection with Srila Prabhupada's unfailing compassion, whether he's appearing to us soft as a rose or hard as a thunderbolt, or just like, why did he use that language? And yeah, and that's the spirit, like that. Towards the beginning of our interview, and right towards the beginning of Srila Prabhupada Sastra, the essay, and yeah, I endeavor to approach Srila Prabhupada with a spirit of, I wonder how that might be true. Even things that seem consistent like that, but there's always infinitely deeper realization available in every word from Srila Prabhupada and every gesture. So particularly in ways, well, that doesn't seem correct, that contradicts this, or why did Prabhupada do that? I endeavor to be in that completely trusting the map, to use that analogy, trusting Srila Prabhupada is coming from a transcendental place. Srila Prabhupada is in no way subject to mistakes, illusion, cheating, limitations in the material sense. He might do things that appear like mistake, and that's transcendental co-created pastime with Krishna. So how might that be true? And okay, so you gave me like two specific tests about different comments from Srila Prabhupada, and in a spirit of discovery, not just in the moment, because I've been studying Prabhupada for about 44 years. In a spirit of discovery, like the kind of what I shared. Yeah, I focused on principles, which my stand. The principles are true and universal and absolute. Srila Prabhupada is not subject to material mistakes or illusions, material modes. He's not subject to material condition. Everything from Srila Prabhupada reveals truth, and it's not different from the truth it reveals. Srila Prabhupada is always unfailingly in the same level of samadhi as Srila Vyasadeva in revealing Bhagavatam. So these are principles. And then as far as far as some of the details about what Prabhupada wrote and the tests you gave, yeah, I shared I shared the result of my realizations based on approaching Prabhupada in a spirit of discovery, and someone else's realizations might complement mine. They might add richness to my perspective, like that. And for sure, though, it's not like, well, let me to find out whether what Prabhupada's saying has validity. I need to read my Psychology 101 textbook or something like that, or like that. So yeah, a spirit of discovery, and that means like, I'm not claiming to have the absolute understanding or any understanding about what Prabhupada's meaning. And I do fully trust the roadmap of who Srila Prabhupada is and what he's giving us. And let's enrich our understanding what Prabhupada is meaning for us, and philosophically in the context of Srila Prabhupada is Shastra. Everything he's giving us is completely on the liberated platform. Everything.
Yeah, I really get the sense from this conversation that we've had today that the old school, aka original epistemology, hermeneutic approach to Srila Prabhupada doesn't lead inexorably to being a racist and a homophobe, which I think is the fear that some people have, what they're reacting to, the criticisms from society. It takes some courage, I think, to simply say, Srila Prabhupada is Shastra, and it's a hill that I'm prepared to die on defending. And that defense can be done in a sensitive empathic, inclusive way. Yeah, that's what I've gotten from our conversation today.
Mm.
I like very much your summary. I like your summary.
I like your book, Srila Prabhupada Shastra. Perspectives on the Infallibility of Srila Prabhupada. It's available on Amazon.
It's available on Amazon, and if someone wants to write me an email, I'm also ready to send it to you. I'm also ready to send it an electronic copy or a printed copy, and it's available on Amazon. Anyone's welcome to write to me. Not so much Facebook Messenger. I don't do other things, but write to me an email. Yes. So, yeah. Well, it means a lot to me that you like and got value from what I wrote.
Yeah, it's great. I don't agree with everything that anyone says, except for Srila Prabhupada, because Srila Prabhupada is Shastra.
Yeah.
And I'm always in an inquiry to understand where people are coming from and what they're committed to.
Yeah.
And, your commitment in the world, I'm aligned with that. And so there may be details of like execution or different things where there may be some differences, but yeah, I fully appreciate where you're coming from.
Yes, I feel resonant. I'm inspired by that. I definitely, I'm experiencing a collaborative, cooperative spirit in service to Prabhupada's mission. And in serving that mission, we each have our distinctive personalities and realizations.
Mm.
Do you have time for one question from the audience, Faru, at this point in time? I'm not sure what time it is where you are in Alachua.
I'm fine with time. I'm glad to give more time. Right now it's about 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm fine.
Okay.
11, yeah.
You wanted to say something, I noticed?
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know what, the greatest father that every human being can have in this world while they're living in this material world is Srila Prabhupada, because he had the audacity to be on the point, and also he had the most beautiful heart to hold every person with such a loving compassion. So there is no such a great father than him. And the way he explained, the way he say things is to different people in a different way, just for them to understand, just for them to have a little bit more of space to think about what he's saying and where they are, And that's the most sublime thing that I can understand of Srila Prabhupada. He's just like how much love he has for humanity.
Yeah.
So much love. And for people to say Srila Prabhupada is culturally conditioned, is a conditioned soul like everybody else,
Mhm.
I think that is a defense mechanism of like, a defense mechanism also as a protection, because they have a fear of being, treated whatever people are treating now, the homophobic or racist or whatever, thought.
I appreciate how you're appreciating Srila Prabhupada. I'm reminded of a letter Prabhupada wrote in December 1972 to one of his students. And he writes, the highest development, I'm paraphrasing slightly, but essentially the highest development of your Krishna consciousness will be when you're able to present these universal principles in a way where anyone will respond positively. Whether we're endeavoring to share bhakti yoga, Krishna consciousness with kindergarten students or university professors or the yoga community or business people, that it's not stereotyped. We have such realization and such empathy, which essentially means super soul connection. We're able to share any of the principles of Krishna consciousness in a way where people feel met where they're at and inspired to grow towards deeper super soul connection. So I'm appreciating, Mataji, your appreciation for Prabhupada's inconceivable expertise to meet people where they're at and lovingly inspire them to grow. And what you share that Prabhupada's cultural conditioned. And it's not like I haven't had thoughts like that, but I have less and less thoughts like that. Now they might be completely eradicated, but certainly at the beginning I had painful doubts. I write about that, like that. But yeah, as you said, because I'm scared to look at my cultural conditioning. If I look objectively at my cultural conditioning and really look at objective truth and dissect that, then I might not have the illusory shelter of those who agree and who are culturally conditioned in the same way. I might be ridiculed, I might be demonized, I might be vilified, even amongst the society of devotees, because we're all invested in this particular cultural conditioning from which we get to say, well, Prabhupada was culturally conditioned there. I'm afraid to look at it. Takes courage, as you said. Thank you.
Here's a question from Alexandre Araujo. How do you say that? Araujo. Prabhu, wouldn't saying that Srila Prabhupada gave 3 possibilities for the moon landing be contradictory with the idea that he was all-knowing?
Okay, thanks for that, Alexandre Arujo. Thanks for that. Yes, actually, pretty much right after Srila Prabhupada Sastra was released, someone who's well known in the devotee community wrote kind of on a Facebook thread. She wrote, "The only time Srila Prabhupada threw people out of ISKCON was when they said he was God." So I'm not saying that Srila Prabhupada is Vishnu Tattva. I'm not saying Srila Prabhupada is a Svamsha expansion. Right? There's Svamsha, Vishnu Tattva, and Vibhinamsha, the Jiva Tattva. I'm not saying Prabhupada is God. I'm saying Srila Prabhupada Sastra. I'm not going to repeat the past 2 hours because I've given different perspectives and ways and understandings of how Srila Prabhupada Sastra. I'm not saying he's God. Okay. So Srila Prabhupada, no. Srila Prabhupada is a pure devotee of Krishna, always. He's never culturally conditioned by any material culture. He's never subject to the human defects of mistakes, illusion, cheating, limitations. He's never subject to the material modes of nature. He's a pure devotee of Krishna. And so Prabhupada knows as much as Krishna wants him to reveal. Prabhupada knows, and even in regards to the moon landing, maybe Prabhupada does know more than he's revealed, but he revealed those 3 possibilities for our benefit. Exactly how for our benefit? That's for each of us to be in a spirit of discovery about. So Srila Prabhupada is revealing whatever is perfect and complete for him to reveal, according to like what Dana Devi said, what's perfect and complete for him to reveal for us now, and for us when we came in contact with the Prabhupada, and for humanity 10 years from now, and 100 and 1,000 and thousands of years from now. So Prabhupada, now that's fine. Maybe Prabhupada knows more about the moon landing than he revealed. Could be. Okay. But I'm not saying Prabhupada's God or Vishnu Tattva. So Prabhupada knows as much as Krishna wants to reveal on every single principle and topic to the Shaktivesh avatar that we know as A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami.
So, yeah, I think there might have been like a collapse between infallible and all-knowing, or in the listening of this particular of Alejandre, an easy one to make. You know what I just got from what you were sharing there, Prabhu, is Srila Prabhupada's own approach to Shastra and our approach to Srila Prabhupada. Here, with the moon landing, for example, he's like, what the 5th canto says is true.
Yeah.
And here's 3 possible ways in which it could be true given what we're facing right now. So to take the same approach to Srila Prabhupada would be, what Srila Prabhupada has said here, it's true. And like, here's a number of possibilities of how that could be true given what we're facing in the current moment. But it starts from the position that this is a priori, I think that's the correct term, truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that the correct use of a priori?
Yes. Yes. Your use of a priori for me, it relates, it's correct. It relates to, it means on the foundation of accepting that what Srila Prabhupada's giving is liberated, pure, perfect, complete truth, revealing truth, empowered, divine, not affect. So on that foundation, let's consider these three possibilities.
Yeah, it's axiomatically true. We just accept it as truth. And is that a justified axiom to hold? You know, to go back to what I said earlier in the conversation, we might be wrong, but nobody can argue that that's not Srila Prabhupada's own presentation and the way ISKCON ran back in the day. It's the original old school. We just accept this axiomatically. Srila Prabhupada is the lens through which we view Shastra itself. Yeah.
Well, it's valid to accept that axiomatically because it's what we get from Prabhupada. It's the 70s hermeneutics, as you said. I'm reminded of the foreword to Srila Prabhupada Shastra is written by Professor Michael Gressett, also known as Mahasamya Das Prabhu, and he writes because he read Srila Prabhupada Shastra and so I very much appreciate his foreword. And one thing he writes there is that he said, look, come on, what is in Srila Prabhupada Shastra? This is the Pramprasadanta given to us by Srila Prabhupada. And then he writes, and let's face it, the opposing view is something other than the Sampradaya Siddhanta. He said, let's just face it, the opposing view is something other.
Yeah. And at the same time, and I hear this in your own speaking about this, and I hold this myself, I'm open to revising that axiom. I'm open to having that disproved.
Yeah.
I hold it at, what is it? Strong opinions loosely held. It's like we take this, we assert it for no reason from nothing, and then, just go out to do two things: to view the world through that lens as our working hypothesis and to see whether it can be invalidated. But as you say, the cutting edge of science and social sciences over decades, it just seems to me personally to be validating, what Srila Prabhupada is saying. And I just grow in my conviction that, this is the useful lens to view the world through, to take a pragmatic kind of approach. I'm not a fanatic. I might be a neophyte, but I'm not a fanatic.
Thanks for sharing, Sitapati Prabhu. Yes, I am open too. At least I like to believe I'm open, and I'm glad to hear feedback to whatever extent people experience me as open or closed-minded. I'm open too. Yes, so to stand strong and clear that there are absolutes and absolute principles, that doesn't mean you're closed-minded. No. In fact, okay, like, all right, because I was open-minded, let's say in first grade, and so my teacher, Mrs. Gerbarg, I was open to what Mrs. Gerbarg had to say. And so from Mrs. Gerbarg, I got the absolute truth that 3 + 3 = 6. So that's absolute truth. 3 + 3 is 6. Now someone can say, oh, you're saying there's absolute truth. That means you're a closed-minded fanatic. No, I am clear and convinced that that's absolute. 3 + 3 is 6. And I'm open. You want to show me evidence that 3 + 3 is something other than 6? I'm actually open-minded. And my stance is that's an absolute principle. Just my stance is it's an absolute principle. Everything from Srila Prabhupada is liberated and not culturally conditioned. And I'm open-minded. This whole thing of openness, because in one sense, as time goes on more and more towards, let's call it the postmodern anti-principles, like that. And postmodernism is characterized by an incredulity towards the possibility of meta-narratives, of foundations for knowledge. Okay, so the idea, so like openness has become practically the only acceptable, yeah, right, the only acceptable principle. And but actually, so openness, it is a sattvic, and it is a valuable quality. It's a Vaishnav quality. Because like if I'm closed, means I'm so insecure that I need everyone to be like me and like that. So openness, it's a spiritual quality, true. And openness is meant to be an instrumental virtue, right? Because I was open. Openness is meant to be an instrumental virtue to bring us towards clearer and fuller realization about objective truth. Not just, if you say there's objective truth, it means you're not open. No, I'm open because I was open. I got the objective truth, 3 + 3 is 6, and I'm still open. If you want to establish that's incorrect. There's somewhere in the 1980s at Harvard, there was a valedictorian at Harvard University. And he was like the top student at Harvard. And he started his speech, or he said in his speech, ladies and gentlemen, all of us graduates here at this fine institution of higher learning, we've all had one common experience in our time at this fine institution. And that experience, ladies and gentlemen, is confusion. Then he went on to say, ladies and gentlemen, the freedom of our day is the freedom to devote ourselves to any values we choose, on the mere condition that we don't actually believe them to be true. So that's a recipe for confusion and insanity. So that's quite some bold talk there at Harvard University. So he was really exposing that aspect of the postmodernist project. Like, yeah, you can believe whatever you want, freedom. But if you actually think it's true and there's objective truth, oh, then that's primitive, that's regressive. You're some sort of fanatic. Or the freedom of our day is the freedom to believe to devote ourselves to any values we choose, on the mere condition we don't actually believe them to be true. Because those who are really intelligent, they understand that it's all a nihilistic nothingness, and it's all relative, and they absolutely know there's no absolute truth, which of course is a contradiction. But Hare Krishna.
That's very interesting. As you're speaking, I hear what I call the Vedic dynamic, which is that there is nothing wrong. Like the Vedic, and this leads to Hinduism, which is there is nothing wrong. Like reality exists, and so everything that is. And so as soon as you have like correct or incorrect, it's some kind of judgment on it. And so the approach there is they're just like, yes, what you are saying is correct. Like you gave a maths example. I remember my maths teacher, I was really into trigonometry. I was 11, and he was teaching me trigonometry in the breaks. And you learn that the internal angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees.
Yeah.
And he said, actually, some triangles have internal angles that are more than 180 degrees. And I was like, what? And then he showed me non-Euclidean geometry. If you map a triangle onto a sphere, the internal angles add up to more than 180 degrees, because the assumption underlying the 180 degrees internal angles on a triangle is that it's on a flat plane. It's on a piece of paper. You put it on a globe and it's more. So yes, it is correct that the internal angles of a triangle add up to 180. It's valid knowledge. It's the 3 + 3 = 6. I'm open to discovering that that's not correct, and here's another case where it isn't. Both are correct, and they fit together and they have a place. So in the Vedic system, it's like, yes, you're worshiping this or you're worshiping that, or you believe this or you believe that. And here's how it fits into reality, all overarching. And even Krishna says, when someone has faith in a particular demigod, I make his faith strong so that he worships that particular demigod. So there's this kind of like, everything is true, nothing is ultimately true, but then at the same time, there is this, it all fits together somehow. And there is a power and a freedom in acknowledging and allowing and expressing. And to go back to the social kind of side of things, Srila Prabhupada's vision for the Vedic state under the Kshatriyas is that their role is not to enforce a particular religion, but to make sure that all of the people in the state are actually following the religion that they purport to follow, so that there's integrity and, as Confucius says, the rectification of names within society so that it can go on in a nice way. Didn't mean to pull that back up.
Thanks for that, Sita. But yeah, like I said, how it all fits together. Because there's karma yoga, there's jnana yoga, and in some ways they're wrong because they just feed material desires. But but Krishna gives so many paths. The Vedas give so many paths. Kind of like we might give a child a sweet, and then he's ready to then he doesn't even know he's getting the bitter medicine, or time and circumstance, that's all there. And I'll just kind of like and the most powerful, complete, deep complete foundation I know for realizing how it all fits together, how those different dimensions fit together, whether we're talking about astronomy or different views on social science subjects. The most powerful foundation I know are Srila Prabhupada's teachings, and approaching those teachings in a spirit of discovery in the container of accepting and relating to Srila Prabhupada as infallible and transcendental.
As a place to stand, like you have to stand somewhere. Mm-hmm. And this was the place to stand that he gave us. And I found it personally to be useful and remaining open. Like, we can believe anything. Okay, we can believe that Srila Prabhupada is Shastra, as long as we don't actually believe it. It's like, I'm open into it being disproved. And, if you can bring along something that's the superior taste, Param Dvishra, then why not? But like, the more I see what's happening in the world today, the more I'm like, you know what? Srila Prabhupada is on the money. Here comes the movie about the fake moon landings.
Yeah, right. Yeah, my empirical experience and the way it's just like the Prabhupada's confirmed more and more every day. And I don't like to read the news, but I do, probably more than is good for me. But the more I see what's going on, not just the news and my life, and look around, it's like Prabhupada's like so right on in ways I couldn't have conceived 40 years ago, what to speak of even 10 years ago.
The other thing that I observe here is, like Srila Prabhupada about the moon landing and 3 possibilities and all of that is like, just with what we have in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, it's too much to comprehend.
Yeah.
Why are we asking for a bigger thing when we cannot even comprehend the most simple thing?
Yeah.
Like, yes, there are different living entities, and those living entities, they have different capacities to understand their reality and their sphere or universe, because they have the capacity to understand that much. And we humans are pretending that we can understand what the other living entities have the capacity, or think that we have the capacity that the other living entities have to comprehend what is actually available there. It's like, for me, it's like so much inauthenticity here, where we think we can understand this. Now, Srila Prabhupada gave what he gave, and the scriptures are there for us to inquire and see for ourselves. There are different universes.
Yeah.
and in different universes and in different planets, that demigods and this and that, and they're performing this, and they just, you know, they don't have to read a book for you to understand. They just have in themselves all the shastras. They're just repeating and talking about it and having this melodious dancing and singing about praising Krishna. And, you know, they're living in a different world. And we think we can do this. It's like, come on, let's be realistic here. We're swimming in our ignorance and our thoughts and our mind, and we just like bog it every day by it. And we think we can understand that. I think we need to be a little bit more of a step back, just do the basic that we have been given for Mother Earth. And this is the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yeah, and I just appreciate Srila Prabhupada. He just gave us the perfect thing to travel even to a different universes through the scriptures now. Yeah, that's me.
Krishna, yeah, that what you described, that taking a step back, that requires humility, Yamana Moha, Jita Sangha Dosha. That's the first quality for spiritual progress, Trinadapi Sunichena, for going back to Godhead, humility. And yeah, like we could even say, yeah, just public, like if we could just like get Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, just Bhagavad Gita, that I could just get a fraction of that would be a success. But no, I think I need to go to some other Shastra to see where Prabhupada might be wrong. No, he probably was wrong about that, and I need to. Oh my God! Again, it's not that I don't read other Shastra, but I read it. I endeavor to read it through the pure lenses of Srila Prabhupada. So, and then it's like the opposite of humility we shared earlier in the conversation. You know, kind of the ideas. Well, yeah, I got such an objective view of reality. I can see that Prabhupada's culturally conditioned there. Shukadeva Goswami has some cultural conditioning going on over there. It's just like, to like I would need to connect with some pretty intense arrogance to even begin to open that door.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the thing about it is, like, I'm open to that could be true. That could be true. You know, who knows? Ultimately, it's kind of like everything is some kind of shade of doubt. But as a place to stand, it really is like, another thing is like, if you believe in anything hard enough, it'll work. Hiranyakashipu is like standing on his tippy toes with his hands up in the air. It's like if you're sufficiently committed to like literally anything, you can turn it out. I'm pretty sure, you know. So it's like, but like, I think to be like committed to doubt. Anyway, you have to find some axiomatic truths and some kind of like hermeneutical. Yeah, it's like as soon as you do that. I've explored that, and like everything starts to disappear into clouds of like everything becomes doubtful, like all the way down. And where you end up at that point is like you end up in like, okay, well, am I even real? Like, is anything in my field of sensory experience real? Like, did I come into existence 1 second ago with all the memories of this conversation and my identity and everything? Like, ultimately, there's nothing knowable except that Satchit Ananda, I exist and I'm here, and there's the Bhagavad Gita in front of me. And if you go all the way down to the bottom of that doubt, like all the way, and become an atheist and then a nihilist and then like all the way to the bottom, and then you're like, okay, well, you know, I do seem to be existing and I am here and something's happening. And so how am I going to build an epistemology and a framework and everything? And you can re-arrive at the same conclusion, just going back up again. Got to believe in something.
I like very much the language you're using, the language of gotta stand somewhere. So I see in our time together, I've appreciated the opportunity in these 2.5 hours. I've appreciated very much the opportunity to consider, and I've grown and become more clear in these 2.5 hours. I appreciate this opportunity that both of you have given me to consider what's my stand and to share my stand. And essentially that's what I've done. Here's where I stand. And I'm open to my stand being adjusted, refined, deepened, confirmed, proven wrong. I'm open to that. And here's where I stand.
Yeah, I got it. And it is the 70s Hare Krishna original flavor. Hermeneutic. It's like if you're going to be an original ISKCON Hare Krishna follower of Srila Prabhupada, like this is that's just how it's done. Yeah, that's what I really love about this. It's awesome. It's the original formula in a new book. It's great. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you for joining us. Really, we need to get a Chutananda on for a complete episode about that. Let's give the last word to a Chutananda, Prabhu. I can't find the source for this quote, but he says, a reporter asked Srila Prabhupada, Swami, is it true that the guru knows everything? Prabhupada says, yes. The reporter challenges, well, how many windows are there on the Empire State Building? And Prabhupada, quick as a flash, comes back with, how many drops of water are there in a mirage?
Beautiful.
That's a koan. When you understand this, you will achieve enlightenment.
Jai Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada. So for everyone viewing, again, it's Srila Prabhupada is Shastra, Perspectives on the Infallibility of Srila Prabhupada. The author's name is not on the front cover. Inside, Dhira Govinda Das. In there. Dhira Govinda Prabhu, Dr. David B. Wolf, thank you so much for your being with us today. It's been a real pleasure being with you, sharing with you, discussing with you, learning from you, and not just from what you have to say, but from the way that you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Sitapati and Dana Devi.
Thank you, Prabhu. It really reminds me, being here with you, it really reminds me, stay open, be open. And there is more to life when we are open. And that actually puts a space for me to hear you. Are you committed in life and who you are as a person? And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Jai
Jai
Srila
Krishna.
Prabhupada. Hare
Hare.
Krishna. Thanks to everyone who tuned in today.
Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Let's run the outro here. If you just, if you could stick around for a couple of minutes, Prabhu, we'll just catch up with you after we roll this outro. Okay, Hare Krishna. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Look forward to your comments on this episode and the future episodes. Thanks for your support.